back to the Watchtower. Today we're going to be looking at the mass exodus of young men from the dating market. We're going to see how women are reacting to this. Let's get into it.
I have been so hesitant to post about this for two reasons. Number one, I don't like negativity and I don't want to be like the bearer of bad news. Number two, I didn't want to believe it. But after doing so much research and getting a lot of messages, I'm going to just deliver the unvarnished truth to you guys. We're just going to lay it out straight. We're in a dating crisis. Not basically, we are. That's what's happening. So let me look at my research here.
I love how people are just starting to realize this. Like, where have you been the past, 10 years, bro?
Because I don't want to mess it up. So men looking for casual dates and our relationships is down 50%. 50 since 2019. Not since 1970, since 2019.
Yeah, so that was right around when the C-19 happened, right? That was right around everybody got basically shipped inside and locked down inside. And so, I mean, it's not super surprising to see that. I mean, it is a huge number, though.
Right before the pandemic, down 50%. They're not fucking looking, which means if you're a woman looking, they don't fucking give a shit. So as this trend continues, by 2040, 45% of women, 45% of women between the ages of 20 and 45 will be single and childless based on this trend.
Basically, half of women between the ages of 20 and 45 are going to be not only single, but they're going to be childless as well. That is horrible. That is just horrible. Wow, I can't believe that. So if the trend continues the way it is now and nothing changes, then I guess that's going to be the scenario. Just half of women are going to be childless. And you know what's crazy about that is these aren't even necessarily, these are women who are in their prime, right? 20 to 45. That's not a demographic that's unable to have kids. It's not like it's 40 to 65, right? 20 to 45, single and childless. Dude, see, this is the shit that I'm talking about. You know, we're easily heading right now for a population collapse. Like, oh my gosh.
Be single and childless based on this trend.
Yeah.
Let that sink in for a moment. I'm
scary,
going to talk a lot more about this. So if you're interested in this topic, hit the follow button because I've got a lot more of information, a lot more to share with you guys.
It's happening, gentlemen. MGTOW is taking over. It's not being seen as some cult movement anymore. Men are waking up to the insanity that is modern dating and relationships. The amount of men choosing to find peace and happiness alone is on the rise. For years, the media...
So I just want to say one thing about MGTOW. You know, I'm not someone who's against the whole MGTOW, monk mode type thing. I think it's a great idea to go, you know, on your own, go your own way, or go monk mode and stop dating for a while and get your shit together, you know? Focus in on what you want. What is your purpose right now in terms of the mission that you're working on? I think there's nothing wrong with that, and I think spending some time getting locked in is good because dating and being in relationships can be really distracting. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I don't think that long-term, you know, doing monk mode and MGTOW and all this shit is a good solution because in reality, for the majority of us, we're going to want to have kids, right? We're going to want to have a family. We're going to want to have a wife. And so I think it's a great short-term solution to kind of get yourself locked in on what you need to be doing. But long-term, you know, unless you're like really a hermit type, you know, going MGTOW and going monk mode is not really a good solution because you're not actually going to really have that sense of fulfillment when you don't have a family. You know, you can do all the hobbies in the world, you can travel the world, you can party, you know, you can sleep with a ton of women, but like at the end of the day, I think a lot of us will get fulfillment from having a family and having like, you know, just a strong family unit and a kid and wife and stuff or multiple kids or whatever. So I don't think it's a good long-term solution to this problem. Let's continue.
It's gotten so bad that the whole single, childless girl boss thing is becoming a joke of itself.
I'm C. Handler, and I chose not to have kids because they're gross. Ugh. And instead focus on my career. This is a day in the life of a childless woman.
I get up at 6 a.m., remember that I have no kids, and go back to sleep because I was out clubbing until 4 a.m. trying to fill the void in my soul with alcohol and meaningless sex. Then I get up at 10. First thing I do is take my anti-anxiety medication, then my antidepressants, then my other prescription meds, and then a shot of Jack to take the edge off.
Stop by the pharmacy to refill my anti-anxiety meds and pick up a morning after pill. And now I'm at my job. Hashtag girl boss. Having a career is so liberating and like way better than having some overbearing husband.
Handler! those reports on my desk in 5 minutes! And big time, remember the cover sheet! Cover sheet!
Yes, sir. Now I'm home, and I can say hi to the most important people in my life. Hi, babies.
Bruh. Oh my God. So even though this is a skit, even though it's a joke, you know, you can see how this is real. Like a lot of people are living this lifestyle where it's just instant gratification, hookups, you know, nothing really of substance in their lives. And it really is depressing to see. Even just a skit like that, it's like, damn, like that shit, that's depressing. Like anybody living that kind of life, that's very depressing. You know, where is your drive coming from? Is it just to go out and, you know, we know that instant gratification, yeah, it makes you feel good now. The instant gratification makes you feel good now. You know, going out to the club, you know, having casual sex, you know, alcohol, drugs, all these types of things. Yeah, it makes you feel good now, but later down the road, it makes you feel like shit. It makes you feel worse. It makes you feel empty inside, like she said. And so all these women going down this road of, you know, I'm going to be the girl boss, quote unquote, you know, and again, showing like the irony of her being in work, and she has literally a guy yelling at her, telling her what to do, where to go, you know, the scheduling and everything. And she's over here, oh, I don't want to have a husband because I don't want to be controlled by him. It's like the delusion is just like level 1000.
This would be even funnier if it wasn't so true. Ladies, this is what you've got to look forward to. A cold, lonely apartment, cats, nobody to take care of you when you can no longer take care of yourself. The most you can hope for is to stay in a retirement home. If you're trying to...
So there is a article out there, I think written up by Morgan and Stanley, which is like investment bankers, and it's all talking about the she economy, and they've actually made predictions and making projections off of where the economy's going based off of these trends in terms of demographics. Single women, you know, being single and childless, having lots of cats and pets and everything to fill up the void. They were literally making projections off of this happening. Let me see if I can find the article real quick. Okay, so this is the article right here, and it's by Morgan Stanley, and it's just talking about the rise of the she economy. If you guys want to read through it and check it out, I think it's a really good idea. But basically, it's just going over sort of the demographics, you know, talking about wage gap stuff, you know, talking about, you know, single women, you know, that demographic growing from 2018 to 2030. You can see the trend lines. It's just freaking crazy. So go check out that article. It's the rise of the she economy. So let's go over this. I found another video here. This one was by CNN, and this was actually done at the beginning of this year, so it's a little bit old. This isn't really anything new. But I just want to go over this just because, you know, it really puts into perspective what the heck is going on here.
Headline from The Hill. It caught my eye. Most young men are single. Most young women are not. The story reported that as of 2022...
Yeah, so this probably isn't news to most young men, right? I'm in my 20s, so I'm in that demographic. This is not a surprise to us, right? This is not a surprise. You know, if you live in the modern age, you already know this inherently. Like, you already know that this is exactly what's going on.
Pew Research Center found 30% of U.S. adults are neither married, living with a partner, nor engaged in a committed relationship. Nearly.
So wait, let's go back there. So as of 2020, you know, 30% of U.S. adults are neither married, living with a partner, nor engaged in a committed relationship. So they're not married, they're not legally married, they're not living with somebody in, like, say, an apartment or house. So they're not cohabitating, and they aren't engaged in a committed relationship. So that could be either maybe an open relationship, or they could just be, all these people, this 30% of people could basically just be doing hookups, right? Doesn't necessarily mean they aren't having sex. It just means that, you know, they're not, you know, in a committed relationship or a continuous sort of regular relationship with somebody or living with somebody. That's a significant portion of the population, though.
Married, living with a partner, nor engaged in a committed relationship. Yep. Nearly half of all young adults are single. Now, look at these numbers. 34% of women, twice as many, a whopping 63% of men. What explains that?
Okay, all right. All right, I've seen this before. This is not the first time that I've seen this stat, but when this came out, I think it really finally made, like, a lot of people who are still blue-pilled, who are plugged into this whole matrix of, oh, you know, what they've been trying to shove down our throats and basically convince us of. I think this might be the straw that breaks the camel's back, because essentially what you have here is it says 3 in 10 Americans report being single, but this varies by age and gender, okay? We scroll down the list of all the demographics. What do you see? Men ages 18 to 29, okay? So basically, you know, 18 to 30, whatever, that age group, let's just say, within that age group, which is a lot of us Gen Z. 63% are single. Over half of us are single. That's fucking crazy, man. Over half of us are single. And if you scroll down a little bit, you look at women, the same age group. So 18 to 29 for women, 18 to 29 for men. For men, it's 63%. Guess what it is for women? 34%. Wow. Almost double, dude. So almost double the amount of men are single versus women. So what does this mean? You know, what can we gather from this? You know, I think really, if you think about it, it would imply that, you know, well, the first thing is the population equal? And roughly, I believe, like for Gen Z, I think it's pretty close. It's not like some huge discrepancy in terms of population. So I think that really what you have going on here is very clear. You know, women in those ages, 18 to 29, multiple women are sharing a guy that they find to be attractive, or like what we say is Chad, Tyrone type. And that is what's going on here. And you can see that many more men are single. So you have literally one guy taking up multiple partners, right? And then you've got, you know, all these other guys who are just basically left out of the whole situation and are single. Unless, you know, there's wildly different definitions of what single is, which I'm sure there is, because, you know, if a woman dates a guy for like 2 dates, 3 dates, maybe she thinks she's in a relationship, whereas a guy's like, what? No. But on top of that, it must be that multiple or that multiple women are sharing a guy. And this is just way more widespread than we think it is.
I pulled the Pew study and I read with interest. Turns out since 2019, the share of single men who say they're looking for dates or a relationship has declined from 61% to 50%. In 2018, 28% of men ages 18 to 30 reported they'd had no sex in the past year, compared with 18% of women of that age.
Right. So, well, I mean, that's not, if you look at that stat, that's not really that surprising. I mean, 30%, it's almost 30%, so that's almost a third. You know, you're getting close to a third of the population of men 18 to 30 who haven't had sex in a whole year. So that is a significant portion of guys if you think about it. Now for women, it's 18%. You know, it's always easier for women. Like, what do you have to do as a woman really to get sex? Like, it's so easy if you want it, right? For guys, it's not. You know, we got to work way harder. So this is crazy.
The Hill report said men in their 20s are more likely than women in their 20s to be romantically uninvolved, sexually dormant, friendless, and lonely. They stand at the vanguard of an epidemic of declining marriage, sexuality, and relationships that afflicts all of young America.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I am that demographic, and I can say, you know, when I was in my late teens, you know, I'm in my 20s now, so when I was in my late teens, that pretty much described like my scenario. You know, I had maybe, you know, 1 or 2 friends, you know, but like there was nothing going on really with girls, you know, nothing really going on with girls. And it's crazy, man.
At the vanguard of an epidemic of declining marriage, sexuality, and relationships that afflicts all of young America. Among the causes, among the factors, a reliance on social media and online porn. But also, more young women are hooking up with each other or dating and marrying slightly older men, and heterosexual women are getting more choosy.
Okay, all right. Whoa! Slow down there, bro. So he's saying young men, you know, a reliance on... Wait a minute. Let me go back. I want to make sure I didn't misinterpret what he said there.
Among the causes, among the factors...
Among the causes, among the factors.
Reliance on social media and online porn.
Oh my God. Please tell me we're not doing this shit again. So he's saying that... He's claiming here that young men are single in such a high, almost double what women are in terms of how single they are because of online porn. Come on, bro. We got to do better than this. We got to do better than this.
But also, more young women are hooking up with each other or dating and marrying.
Okay, so he's saying online porn, social media, lesbianis,
slightly older men, and heterosexual.
And he's also claiming that young women are dating older men, which, yeah, okay, that happens, yep.
Women are getting more choosy.
Other troubling. Okay, I was gonna say, come on, he's gotta have that in there somewhere, right? So, right, the standards, the expectations are increasing, right? So now it is multiple women going after the same high status guy or guy that they think is attractive. Whereas before, you know, you really have to think about this. Women always want to date someone above where they are, right? You guys all know, if you've been in this space for a while, about hypergamy and all this kind of stuff. They always want to date someone who's either at least equal to them, right, or above. And with the invention of social media and being able to have access to all these high tier guys, their standards have been increasing, like, you know, so much to where the average guy really has a hard time. It's really hard for you to really look like anything in their eyes because they're programmed to date above from where they are. So, this is really what's going on. I'm really glad that he mentioned that because it's absolutely true.
Statistics about men come from a 2021 study from the Survey Center for American Life. They found the share of men who have 6 or more close friends, which in 1990 was 55%, by 2021 had shrunk by half. Whoa. Meanwhile, those with literally 0 close friends, which stood at 3% in 1990, has zoomed to 15%.
Okay. Well, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, think about it. Social media, video games, we're constantly online. We don't go out to bars and clubs and stuff anymore. We don't really spend much time outside socializing compared to what we do inside. So that's not really a huge surprise to me.
An expert quoted by...
You have to actually get out there and be around people to, meet people, make friends, find women and stuff. You have to actually be amongst people. And a lot of us spend so much time inside now, it's not really surprising.
The Hill said this disconnect can have catastrophic consequences for young men. Quote, in the worst case scenario, the young American man's social disconnect can have tragic consequences. Young men commit suicide at 4 times the rate of young women. Younger women are largely responsible for rising rates of mass shootings, a trend that some researchers link to their growing social isolation.
First off, Mike, I just want to say thank you for raising this issue a year ago when a lot of media companies were afraid to talk about this for fear of it being pro-men was somehow being anti-women. Look,
yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's like we can't even have discourse over the real problems affecting our society because, we got to be so afraid that it's against feminism or that it's going to put women down. And it's just so, I'm so sick of it, man. I'm so sick of it. It's like, dude, if we get men up and running, if we can get men back in, good shape to where they're actually able to function and we're not worrying about them committing, and all this kind of stuff, like that benefits everybody. That benefits women, right? That benefits society as a whole. We have to stop looking at it like every time we talk about men's issues or try to help men, it's going to put women down. It's just so fucked up, man.
This is returning to the natural order of things. For the majority of history, a small percentage of men have had the majority of the mating opportunities. But in America, we decided to make a huge investment.
Yeah, exactly. So again, he's describing what's exactly going on here. It's the Pareto principle. It's where the majority of women are actually, having relationships with a minority of guys. That's just essentially what's going on.
Investment in what would probably be the greatest innovation in history, and that is in the middle class. From 1945 to 1947, 7 million men returned from war, were discharged from the service, and we decided to give them the GI Bill, subsidized mortgages. We saw education rates go from 5 to 45%. They were valued, and we had such a strong manufacturing base that you had massive marriage and household formation. And some men were seen as more economically and emotionally viable. And you've seen the reverse happen with the offshoring of much of our manufacturing base, with a society that quite frankly doesn't value young men. When we talk about problems with people of color or women, we see it as a systemic societal problem. When we see problems or the stats that you just mentioned, we see it as accountability or that men just need to level up. But
dude, that is facts. That is absolute facts, bro. Right. So we're constantly pushing all these other people's agendas and all their problems and focusing on them. And yet when it comes to men and young men and their problems, it's like, well, just pick yourself up by your bootstraps, bro. Well, like, stop being a lame, like get out there, go to the gym, and again, I'm all about like self-improvement and everything and actually moving up. But you have to recognize the macro factors that you're in. You have to recognize the sort of macro picture that you're in. And if that is constantly going against you, there's only so much that you can do. You know what I mean? So it's like we have to actually recognize these issues and stop throwing it under the rug as if it's just not a big deal, or all men are just like whining, complaining, or blah blah blah. It's just like you have to actually take this shit seriously. The other thing you mentioned there was the middle class kind of being artificially propped up and making it so that the bulk of men could actually be economically viable and attractive to women, right? So that's another great point that he's bringing up. This guy is like spot on with all of this. I think his name is Scott Galloway. Probably want to check this guy out. I don't know.
Married households and household formation are better citizens. They vote. They save at twice the rate. They're less likely to commit crimes, and we have fewer.
I'm not someone who really agrees with legal marriage these days, especially not in the United States. But I definitely believe in like family and family formation being extremely important for the continuation of civilization.
fewer and fewer viable men. We have a dearth of economically and emotionally viable men. But the middle class is an accident. Unless you invest in it, it doesn't happen. Eisenhower decided to invest $500 billion in a national highway project that created tons of jobs. We have, and by the way, the tax rate back then was 91%.
Wow.
We raised money and we redistributed.
I didn't even realize that. So I didn't even realize that the middle class has been artificially sort of propped up and was kind of created. I didn't necessarily realize that that was the case. And so now you can see economically, you know, our manufacturing leaves. Like my grandfather used to work in manufacturing and he was able to support his family. Can't do that now. And a lot of those jobs have gone, right? They went down south or they went to went across seas, you know, to China, all these other Asian countries. So a lot of this has to do with economics.
And then, Scott, you toss in the influence of social media and how relationships today, they don't come from, in our era, happenstance and mingling, right? They come from...
Right. Back then, they had to actually get out. They had to get outside and mingle amongst people, meet people, make friends, go to social events. Whereas now, you know, we have the ability to, quote unquote, meet people on social media, through, you know, video games, through, you know, just online dating. So it's totally different now, which is crazy.
Swiping, and that further accelerates this issue. Am I right?
Oh, it's been the chaser to it. I mean, to have an honest conversation about this, we have to be honest, and that is that men and women have different mating criteria.
Facts.
1/4 of women.
Bro, this guy gets it, bro. Holy shit. I don't even. How the heck did they let this guy on mainstream media? What the heck?
Excuse me, 1/4 of men saying economic viability is a key criteria in a mate. 3/4 of women say that is important. And when you're
right, so yeah, obviously for women, it's always going to be more important that you're economically and financially stable because they're going to have to carry the burden of the child, right? And so they need to feel like they aren't relied upon for going out and, you know, having to provide resources. That, yeah, I mean, that's a no-brainer.
You're on a 2-dimensional format where now it's 1 and 2 relationships begin online. It used to be 1 and 4 just a few years ago.
That's like 50%.
It gets distilled down to a small number of criteria. Specifically for men, it's does she look attractive? And specifically for men, is he able to signal his ability to garner resources in the future? An average attractive male on Tinder gets swiped less than 1% of the time. And there's 3 men on Tinder for every 1 woman. So you've distilled it, you've taken out.
That's horrible. Oh my gosh. Dude, online dating, no, bro, no. Right, so for men, does she look attractive? Does she look like she's fertile and able to have kids?
And is he able to signal his ability to garner resources in the future?
And then for her, she's looking more for the financial investment. But even if you have the financial investment, there's a lot of guys on these dating apps who, you know, are extremely attractive. And so they're going to tend to go more in that direction.
Average attractive male on Tinder gets swiped less than 1% of the time.
Dude,
and there's 3 men on Tinder for every 1 woman.
So there's 3 men for every 1 woman. So right there, it's not even 50-50. And then the average guy gets swiped on less than 1%, I think he said. I think 1%, right?
And there's 3 men on Tinder for every his ability to garner resources in the future. An average attractive male on Tinder gets swiped less than 1% of the time. And there's 3 men on Tinder for every 1 woman. So yeah, less than 1% of time, the average guy gets swiped on. Wow, that's you've distilled it. You've taken out one of the key components of mating dynamics, and that is vibe, humor, body language, pheromones, the ability to be.
Exactly. So that's the thing with online dating is that you can't. The game doesn't matter. Like Riz doesn't matter. Your vibe, the way that you interact, the way that, like he said, your pheromones and stuff. Like you can't get that through. So what it boils down to is literally just how you look and like how much money you have. So it's like you're already at a disadvantage because most guys don't look that great, right? Most of us aren't models and most of us aren't rich. So it's like you're kind of already at a disadvantage by going online.
Quite frankly, a little bit persistent in the pursuit.
Unless you're like an above average male in terms of, you know, one of those categories.
Of a romantic relationship. We have no third places anymore, no places to meet. People aren't going to bars, they aren't sports league, they aren't going to church, they aren't even going to work. So it gets distilled.
Yeah, like COVID. That's the thing about I almost said it. The C19 was everybody started to move back home. Normally you'd have intermingling of people at their workplace, and that's where a lot of people meet each other, or going out to bars afterwards, or restaurants, or hanging out, you know. So the C19 definitely made a huge impact on this.
Down to very one or two dimensional attributes. And the reality is women are much choosier than men, and they can apply those screens and they allocate all of their attention to a small number of men that results in just essentially at the end of the day, a lack of opportunities. Chris Williamson summarized it perfectly. He called it the high heels effect. In the last 40 years, more women have graduated from college than men, and they're not interested in mating with non-college grads.
Right.
They now own more homes, single women, than single men. So what you have is women say they won't date anyone shorter than them, 50% of them. Effectively, what you have metaphorically over the last 40 years is women have been getting taller and taller, and men have been getting shorter and shorter.
Yep.
How many of us have said, I know a ton of great single women, they can't find a date? That's not true. They can't find a date. They can't find a man they find economically or emotionally viable.
Facts.
If we don't...
Yo, this guy has got it down. Okay. So what he's saying is, just to break that down and kind of rehash that, is that women have been increasingly, making more money, owning more property, getting degrees. And so they don't want to date down. Like, their nature doesn't really allow them to happily date downwards. So they need someone at least on their level, if not above. But the problem is guys aren't necessarily going in that same direction, right? And there's only so many of us who are at the top like that. And so what they're doing is they're kind of putting themselves in this category by getting richer and richer and more degrees and more property and stuff and higher in socioeconomic status, that they're almost locked into this group where they can't find any other guys who are on their level or above. The only ones who are on their level or above, they have to basically share, because there's only so many guys who are in the higher tier.
We're going to see a lack of household formation. We're going to see a decline in the middle class. And we're going to see, quite frankly, just a lot of young men who are terrible citizens.
So is the answer to...
Yeah, because here's the thing, and they've talked about this before, I'm sure you've heard this, where in societies where things are polygynous, where there's one guy who has multiple wives, those tend to be societies where there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of upheaval, there's a lot of socioeconomic issues, there's a lot of strife, there's war. And the reason for that is because a lot of times there's a huge base of guys who are single who just have no chance. Because if this population is split 50-50, roughly speaking, right, then that means if there's one guy who's taking up multiple women, then these other guys just don't have a chance, right? They don't really have a chance to get a girl. And so that's a big problem, because that's a huge part of drive and just life for human beings.
Our economic policies literally allocate wealth from young people to old people. The percentage of wealth that young people control under the age of 40 has been cut from 12% to 6%. These are concerted, deliberate decisions. We did away with the child tax credit. We don't want to make it any easier for people to have kids, but seniors just got their largest cost of living adjustment increase in history. We have made the decision to make it harder and more expensive for people to find each other, for people to mate, and for people to have children. And without children, we turn into Japan and Italy, and that is we go into population decline, and our economy goes into decline.
Facts.
We are about to become a society, by the turn of the century, there will be 8 times as many people over the age of 60 and half as many kids under the age of 5.
Dude.
Nursery schools will become these strange situations with old people staring through fences at these creatures they don't see in the wild called children. Is this the world we want? Do we want a lack of kids? Do we want a lack of ability to create households? The happiest...
I would say it depends on who you ask, right? Depends on who you ask. Maybe the people who are pushing this agenda, yeah, that's probably exactly what they want.
Most prosperous, most purposeful people in America are middle-class families. And we have made a concerted decision to punch it in the gut and make it harder for that type of family formation. And we're going to lose prosperity, and we're going to lose purpose.
So that guy was right on point. Scott Galloway, shout out to him, man. I don't know, maybe go follow his socials or something, but he definitely knows what he's talking about. So one other thing I just want to mention here, one thing I just want to point out to kind of support this idea of the fact that kind of explains why so many guys are single but less women are, is there's these groups popping up called Are We Dating the Same Guy? Okay, so I'm just on the Facebook. I just went to Facebook and looked this up. So Are We Dating the Same Guy, New York City? Okay, so this is in New York City. Look how many members there are. 131,000 people are in this group. That's a lot of women. That's a lot of women in this group, okay? So this just kind of goes to show, and I think that they have these for multiple different cities. This just goes to show if there's actual groups of women who come together to try to see if they're dating the same guy, that it is actually happening. And so if that's actually happening, there's your proof right there, right? There's your evidence.